I'm very, very pleased and honored to have with us today an amazing pianist who is also a music school graduate from the Manhattan School of Music, who has played with a who's who of prominent jazz musicians, from Wynton Marsalis in the Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra to Elvin Jones, Cassandra Wilson, Ornette Coleman. I could go on and on. But who has recently, in the last few years, taken his career in a very personal and unique direction by following his passion. And I'd like you all to please welcome Eric Lewis, ELEW. Thanks for coming here today.
Sure, thanks for having me. You can be as good as you want to be, or whatever, but it's going to be rare in the jazz world that someone's going to say, "Oh, you are better than this person," or "You're selling more than this person, that makes you better." Unlike the pop world, Justin Bieber's selling all this stuff, so does that make him the? What does that mean? You know what I'm saying? Or in the hip hop world, more specifically, they compete with each other very directly, and they say, "Oh, this guy is whack. I'm much doper than he is," or "This guy sucks." All this kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, my point is that since that's missing from this jazz kind of industry, this jazz culture, the same threat recognition is not there. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, well, it used to be. I mean, with cutting contests and stuff like that.
But you don't hear about, everything's so politically correct. This is why I caught a lot of static, because I was coming with this whole chess game thing when I would play these guys for money. I was getting beat, they'd be talking trash, and I was owing money, all this kind of stuff like that. It made me realize, well, there is a such thing as winning and losing. Just because someone says I sound great doesn't necessarily make it so. Everyone's going to say you sound great. Everyone's going to say that you suck. You know what I'm saying? So then it's like, well, how do you, what's left? Well, then what's left is branding. You have to distinguish yourself in the marketplace. Because in like this whole politically correct kind of thing, no one wants to say, or whatever. I mean, it's not, talking in competitive terms.
Right.
Is not really in the environment like it used to be, or like it is in the rap environment, or these other environments that are highly lucrative,
so
highly competitive.
So, but I mean, I'm curious, because if jazz isn't as competitive, yet you won the probably the biggest competition, the Monk competition.
Yeah.
So it's not the same?
When I was in the competition, I was shocked. BET did a video of each one of us, and they were saying, so how do you feel? You're about to go on. What's your feeling about this competition? All this stuff like that. And so everybody, no exceptions except me, everybody was like, "Oh," and I could just see it. I could see this little switch jump off. It's like this politically correct switch, and it really burned me up.
Well, what did they say?
They said, "Oh man, I'm so happy to be here. Oh, it's great. Herbie's here, and these wonderful players, and I'm just glad to get heard, and whatever happens,
It's all
blah,
good.
blah, 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 blah." And when they got to me, I was like, "I came here to win."
Straight up.
Thank you. And I won. Yeah, I just quit Wynton's band because, around 25, 26, it's normal to start having like panic attacks for some people. Basically, your body starts giving you signals as if there's like a lion in the room about to devour you. Your heart's beating, you're like, "I think I want to die. I don't know what's going on." I was like looking in the mirror like, "What's happening?" They called the ambulance. You had to pay all this money. They're like, "Nothing's wrong with you." I'm like,
so you really, literally had
I was having panic attacks.
Wow.
I was having hardcore, and I didn't know what they were for a while. But anyway, I tried to check myself in the bell, like all kind of hardcore. But I'm not going to like dramatize it, but this is what happened. So my point
this was
is,
all just because concern about your career, where you were at,
typical stuff,
money,
all that stuff. By the time I get to the Monk competition,
so you quit Wynton before the Monk competition?
yeah, I quit Wynton in January because I would they wanted me to do a contract, like a seasonal contract, and I always did engagement to engagement because I wanted to keep myself flexible in case another gig came along. Anyway, I turned it down. I turned down 30 grand with nothing.
No backup.
With no backup. 30 grand contract because I was like, if I'm with this guy, I might go to jail. You know what I'm saying? Get to that level. So I'm not going to take this gig anymore. So there I was with no gig, and just like, so then I look in the Downbeat magazine, I see the Monk competition has come back around. I was in it when I was 16, qualified, I got into the semifinals. And then, anyway, first place was 20 grand, so I was like, perfect, I just gave away 30, here's a shot for 20 though.
Right.
Okay.
In one go.
In one go.
Right.
I like it like that. So then I started practicing and, doing all this stuff, and in the article I outlined, my techniques, I was like, my mental, what I was doing. But my point is that when I noticed that everyone was talking this politically correct talk, I got really angry. One, because I don't like lies a certain kind of way. It's like, wait a minute. You all know that you want to win this money just like I do. Or do you not? What's wrong with you if you don't? I know I'm trying to win this cash here.
Yeah, it's a competition.
It's a competition, and I personally need the money. The thing about it is that if you don't say it, it's not going to happen. At least I felt bad for them. I was on the side of the stage kind of like trying to root for them at a certain level. It's like, I'm going to crush it out here. You guys act like this is Smalls or something, or Fat Cat, or, you got your little arrangement. Okay. I'm going to come through here and try to break this thing in half, Well, and it worked, I'm trying to say, and it's still working.
Right. I'm curious now about the transition from the kind of former artist that you were, in the direction you were in, the music you were involved in, and it seemed like it was succeeding. You were playing with everybody.
Right.
You were playing at the highest level.
Right.
You won the Monk competition.
Yeah.
What happened to make you want to jettison all that and go in a totally different direction?
Honor. Okay. See, no one gets into jazz to be rich. Same with me. I didn't get into this to jazz straight ahead for the purposes of becoming a rock star, or having a bunch of cash and all that. I got into it because I had been trained to be a piano player, and then when I first saw Wynton and these guys in my hood, I saw black guys with great suits on and something different than what I was used to, and playing virtuosically. And I was like, wow, And then when I started learning about jazz, and I learned names like Coltrane, Miles Davis, Charlie Parker, then I would see genius next to those names. Art Tatum, genius, the masterworks of, all that kind of stuff. That did a lot for me as a member of this part of the society. You know what I'm saying? So there was something for me to do.
Aspirational.
Yeah, and it made me feel good. Just as a person that looks like this, who lives in this, this thing. So I felt like I was contributing. I felt like I was a part of something. It's like people talk about why'd you want to be a gangster? You know what I'm saying? I felt like I was a part of something, like Cosa Nostra, that kind of thing. So I felt like I was a part of this jazz thing. It's like a cool thing, it's a black thing, and all that. When I started encountering certain kinds of difficulties, and stuff.
Was it personal difficulties? Was it musical difficulties?
Systemic difficulties. Stuff like, well, let me see. I'll say things and then maybe so a bigger picture form, but.
Okay.
I couldn't get a record deal, first of all. And for me, it was like, wait a minute. I've paid my dues here. I graduated full scholarship Dean's List from Manhattan School of Music. I come from the hood. And I'm touring with Cassandra Wilson, Marsalis, Elvin Jones, ELEW. I have a voice. I have something. I have a fire that I want to express, just like the other jazz musicians that recorded. So how come I can't? And my personality, I'm ambitious, and I'm competitive.
So, I mean, you have an academic background. Do you think that this dilution of the competitive kind of spirit, does that have anything to do with jazz now moving into an academic environment, a schooled environment?
Totally. What does jazz mean? The way I see it, back when they say, don't play that devil music, jazz, that's devil music. That's because the environment that it happened in was like what they would call, devilish environment, a sin kind of environment. Al Capone, what kind of music were they rocking back in those days? What was going on in those clubs? The Cotton Club, Dutch Schultz, like all this kind of thing, prohibition, all that. Today, jazz doesn't have that kind of a connotation. Now it sounds like something, or feels like something you want to get a grant for. It's academic.
Right.
You can't...
Or institutionalized jazz at Lincoln Center.
Right. And so then, all the stuff that was jazzy about jazz in that scandalous or saucy, lurid way, that's over in the Lil Wayne world. That's in the hip hop world.
So let me play devil's advocate for a minute. Okay, so you put this out yourself, and the last one out yourself. Yeah. Why not? Did it occur to you at the time when you were in the jazz world to put out your own CD and just do it like that? Did it?
No, because I didn't have any. It wasn't in the training. I was practicing all day like everybody else.
So the hustler side of your mentality didn't even really bleed over into the jazz artist side at that point?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't start bleeding over until I turned like 29, about to turn 30. Like, this young lion thing still hasn't happened.
Just musically speaking, were you frustrated musically, or was it a career frustration more? Did you feel like there was something that you weren't able to do musically, you were limited musically? Because I'm curious why the stylistic change kind of was so pronounced and you went so strongly in this new direction.
Okay. Well, lyrics. I used to visit all those very gay places, the come up made places where one relaxes on the axis of the wheel of life to get the feel of life from jazz and cocktails. Then you came along with your side of the song, okay. The very thought of you makes my heart sing like an April breeze on the wings of spring, and you appear in all your splendor, my one and only love. Picture you upon my knee, just me for you, you for me, just T for two for T alone. Like, east of the sun, west of the moon, we'll build a dream house of love, dear, near to the sun in the day, near to the moon at night, we'll be in a lovely way, dear, sipping on wine by the pale moonlight. Okay, great, but how do I get across the energy of, how do I get that across? What lyrics do I use in jazz if I want to get that out? Like that, right? Crawling in my skin, these wounds, they will not heal. Fear is how I fall. Confusing what is real. That's Lincoln Park. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, okay, I can use that.
Why not? Why weren't you drawn to doing like a hip hop thing, a la Robert Glasper, or there's a bunch of people doing that? You didn't feel pulled in that direction.
I looked at that, but as a chess player, I saw it wasn't really a strategically good move. I hope it works out for them, but I don't see it as a strategically good move. It's cool if you want to be in that energy, and that's fine artistically, but strategically, business-wise.
Tell me why.
Simply because that music is about the rapper and the lyrics. There's brilliant stuff going on musically in the background, like really cool, amazing stuff, but it's in the background, and it's looping. It's very repetitive.
Right.
And so the rapper is the one that carries the story and moves it along. It's a very narrow kind of thing. Like you could play bop bop ba do ba do do ba do bop boo bee ba do ba ba do ba ba do do. It's still abstract though. This is just the technological difference between using words and using sounds. I looked at rock. I was like, well, in rock, if I listen to the Foo Fighters, I listen to Cobain, you know, these guys already have instrumental stars. Dave Navarro, Brandon Flowers, Chris Martin. I'm naming the piano player. What is the guitar? Well, there's different. I'm still Chester Bennington, Mike Shinoda, Dr. Luke, Mr. Hahn. Like, people know who those guys are as musicians in those bands. Mm-hmm. The Slash.
Right.
You know, oh yeah, that's that guitar. So oh, that's the guy. Yeah, that's Slash, right? People know who they are as musicians, and for the average person, that's improvisation. That's musicianship. For a lot of people who don't like rap, they're like, well, those guys aren't even really musicians. It's not true, but yeah, what they're trying to sort of kind of say is
because they don't play instruments.
Yeah, you know, that kind of thing. But like, look at Slash, or the rock drummers, you know, Neil from Rush, you know. So I was like, well, that's the place that I should be, even though it's not really in my culture. That's the place I should be because that's where I have room to express virtuosity and I have a better shot of selling it.
And still getting something that's emotionally powerful and direct.
Right, because the lyrics, you know, I totally can get with, you know, the 10 Crack Commandments. I know what that is. I know all about that. But for me, the psychological power of crawling in my skin, you know, these, I found it hard. It was hard to find, oh, well, whatever, never mind. Like, that stuff, like the subtleties in there that have nothing to do with money or
right.
girls.
Right.
Just the subtleties of the human psychology and this pain and questioning oneself and, you know, breaking the habit and that kind of stuff like that. I could relate to that from the clinical perspective, you know, when I was going through all these psychological turmoils and stuff, and I was habitually gambling, and, you know, I was having these panic attacks. I had to start reading about Oedipus and Freud and all this stuff, and neurology and neuroanatomy and stuff to actually
try and to
get myself together. And that whole tradition, that whole culture is inside of like the rock. Mm-hmm. You know, the rap thing, it's too much hyperbole and too much, it's a little too narrow. And although I have some gangster behaviors, I don't call myself a gangster, you know what I'm saying? And that whole world is all about that authenticity. They've created their own set of rules, their own
mythology.
Thing. Right, and they've enforced it, most importantly, with their money. They've enforced it, right? For rock, I don't know one rock song that talks about, I'm getting paid, and da-da-da. Like, they don't talk about that. You know, they might talk about ladies, but still, it's not, you know, oh, you should be all night long, you know, like, right. But it's fun. The girls even like it, you know, stuff like that. But they handle it in that way, and for my personality and for how I do things, musically, I follow that, but when it comes to business, I'm like a hip-hop person.
What I kind of opened Eric's eyes up to right away, because it was actually, it was important for me to find out, once I met him and once I was watching him and was in awe, complete awe of his musical prowess and the way he played and what he did to the rooms of people watching him. What I saw in people watching him when he was playing straight ahead jazz, one of the first things I asked him was, is jazz music, I mean, right away I came out with it. I said, when I started to think, could I work with this guy? Would I be able to help this guy? Could I do cool, much bigger things with this guy and his music? The very first thing I asked him was, are you interested in other music besides jazz music? The very first, and I said, are you interested in films? Are you interested in TV? Because right away I saw opportunity for him to do scoring of films and to do music for TV. It wasn't yet as prevalent, the screen kind of ideology that we all have now. Everything is on a screen, but we've been working together 9 years, and back then I just already knew that if I got involved with a musician like him, I knew there was no money to be made in me working with him just playing straight ahead jazz. So I wanted to know, and where that question was coming from was really, can this guy compose? Is he creative enough to like create his own music, and will it be exciting or whatever it needs to be for TV and film? And when I asked him that question, it was, he had just like gotten off the bandstand. It was at Cleopatra's Needle. He was like sweating, I think. It was just like after him like soloing and jamming. And it was a question I was like waiting for him to get off the bandstand and ask him. And I asked him without hesitation. He said, "Yeah," like a lion, like pouncing on the question. He was like, "Yeah, I am," like hungry. We were continuing our conversations like every Monday night, because every Monday night he was leading this jam session, and I kept hearing what I needed to hear. I kept asking questions, and he kept answering them pretty much correctly. And then I started to tell him things that he didn't know, because he was very insulated in the jazz world. He really didn't know a lot about, even though he knew about hip-hop music, and he has taught me about hip-hop music, I didn't know that much about, like, I couldn't quote, like, Bands Make a Dance or something. I couldn't quote those songs, but he didn't really know about how Rolling Stone magazine, for example, is way more of an effective music magazine than Jazz Times or Downbeat. He thought that Jazz Times and Downbeat were like the be-all and end-all magazines, and I was like, what? I was like, what magazines are you talking about? I had never even seen them. He had heard of Rolling Stone, and he had heard of Time, and he had heard of People, and he had heard of Vibe, and he had heard of like Spin. I had not heard of Downbeat or Jazz Times, and I explained to him, the very first, one of the things I said to him was, take a look at the advertising in Jazz Times and Downbeat, and then take a look at the advertising in Rolling Stone and Spin and Vibe. I said, the people who are buying the products of the advertisers in these magazines are the people who are listening to the music that is being written about in these magazines.
Just like she's like, if people were from Downbeat or Jazz Times were here, they'd probably be a little, their feelings would be hurt the way she came across with that. But that's real. That's how we're living, because it's like I experienced that when I started trying to get into the world, outside of the jazz game. Like when I said, okay, fine, I'm quitting Lincoln Center and I'm going to go and try to make my own thing happen. Well, the first thing that happened was as soon as I jumped out the helicopter, bow, bow, bow. I'm getting, I haven't had a chance to fire I got my shoulder rifle, I got all this kind of stuff, bow, bow. I'm already hit. It's like a war metaphor. It's like I'm ready to go kill something. I'm already getting hit before I even have a chance to fire my weapon. First thing that happens, I got kids that are looking at me like I'm an idiot, talking to me like I'm an idiot. Idiot. Like, you don't know who Chris Martin is? You've never heard of Coldplay? Well, I won the Thelonious Monk competition. What's that? What's that? Oh, well, so you play piano? Yeah. Are you like in a band or? Well, I played with, I play with like Wynton Marsalis. Who's that? Or, well, I used to tour with Elvin Jones. He's like one of the greatest. Who's Elton John? You play with Elton John? No, Elvin Jones. It's insulting and it's a shock and it's like the feelings get hurt and it's like this whole thing of like, how could you not know who Elvin Jones is? Speak No Evil, John Coltrane, Passion Dance. I mean, Elvin, he meant the world to me, but he didn't mean anything to this world. And it was like, wow, everything that I've worked on and was precious to me, it was like meaningless. And it was a double whammy because I couldn't even get a record deal in jazz with all that love and loyalty that I had shown to the game just at the musical level, paying my dues, working with the masters, learning how to play. No love. Now I'm going into the big ocean to try to, catch me something. And now it's like, that's totally meaningless. Now at least I still had a little bit of kind of meaning in the jet. It was really a hellified experience that made me understand why so many don't really want to try to make it in like the outside world, because you go out there, you're going to get asked some questions, you're going to get dealt with a certain kind of way that's like really going to make your toes curl up. I had to actually humble myself and learn who Chris Martin was. This is the world that you're in. Understand that. I'm not saying it to you to break you down, I'm saying it to build you up as one of you, as coming from that jazz, coming from this zone. Realize that you need to know what your enemy is. I read like a lot of Sun Tzu and Musashi, and Navy SEAL autobiographies when I was in the process of like starting this thing, learning about special ops and all that. You have to respect your enemy. And if you want to beat somebody, you have to get them to not respect you. You want your enemy to think little of you. Because then you say, oh, Eric Lewis, what's he doing, some rock thing? Or, that's what I want. Please condescend upon me, please. Yeah, keep doing that. I want you, make it easy. Make it easy. Proof, CNN. Oh, Rockjazz. Yeah, you made it easy. And now when you hate on me, I just flip it. See, Pop World, they're hating on me because they don't like you. That's not exactly true, but I can flip it like that because the pop guys aren't paying attention to the jazz guys. So oh wow, they're already insecure because they know they're just making money and not really, necessarily playing a whole bunch of stuff. So they're already naturally insecure that the music geek guys are going to, call them out. So then, when these guys are hating on me, I can just flip it around and just, further ingratiate myself over here. But that's all strategical. That's all tactical, right? But that's part of the game. I don't want you to complain. This is my whole message. I don't want you to complain. Complaining sucks, it hurts. If you are truly art for art's sake, great. Good for you. I'm happy for you. Awesome. You play and it brings you joy and you're not interested in money and that kind of thing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's totally fine. Rock on, swing out, do that. Do that. Please. Now, if you want to charge people $1 for what you do, for making some sound on your instrument, you've crossed the line. You belong to me. Now you're in the business world. The moment you start charging, you belong to the business world. And I don't want you to complain when the business elements come in and start impacting you.
I didn't understand exactly why you chose to go to the business world and abandon jazz.
Why?
Yeah, I didn't understand.
Understand
exactly
exactly,
what.
okay.
Yeah.
It was a mixture of betrayal and greed. Betrayal and greed. Betrayal in the sense that I came to this music to be like my heroes, like Miles Davis and the like. And for me, that meant doing like they did, performing and learning with the masters, like Miles Davis was with the Blue Devils, and he was with Charlie Parker, and he was practicing with Dizzy and Clark Terry, and then eventually he developed his sound, and then he started becoming that for the players that he was hiring, the Sonny Rollinses, and the Bill Evanses, and the Wynton Kellys, and the Red Garlands, and the Philly Joe Jones, and the Paul Chambers, and the Ron Carters, and the Herbie Hancocks, and the Tony Williams, and the Wayne Shorters, and the George Colemans, and all these kind of fellas, right? I wanted to be a part of that, and I was under the impression that the jazz record labels and all that stuff were connected to that. We're all forwarding the tradition, and if I proved myself worthy and did my practicing and my apprenticing like the masters before me did, that I too, in life, in tradition, would be noticed and said, well, does this guy have a voice? Does he have something he wants to say? And continue tradition on. But I didn't see that happening. Now, maybe it's egotistical of me, and I'm willing to accept that, but maybe it's egotistical of me to have thought that highly of myself, that I should have gotten a record deal, and that what I had to say was worthy of being shared and sponsored by a label or something like that. Maybe that's egotistical of me. But sorry for having a dream. Sorry for wanting to be like Coltrane. Sorry for wanting to be like Bud Powell or Art Tatum. That was the driving ambition. I would look at those albums and look at the artwork and read the liner notes. And wow, that's Coltrane. Look at his record. Look at the cover. Look at the Blue Note sign there. Oh, Prestige label. Oh wow, look at the liner notes. I was into all that. I wanted to look at the Herbie Hancock Maiden Voyage cover. Wow, look at the Horace Silver record. Look at the colors and everything. Inner Urge, In and Out, like Joe Henderson. Well, maybe if I work hard enough, one day it'll say Eric Lewis, Blue Note, or whatever, something like that. And when I didn't see that happening, especially after winning the Monk competition, I took it as betrayal. I'm not the type of person that's going to let someone do everything but tell me that they hate me and then act like they don't hate me. Like, I call it betrayal. Oh, Eric, it wasn't personal, da 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 da. There's so many players we didn't feel. No. If you don't have the balls to say that it was betrayal, I do though. So I call that betrayal, neglect. So from there, my whole thing about integrity to the, swinging or whatever it is, that whole deal, you guys broke, you guys screwed that relationship up with me. No, this is open warfare. I don't want to hear it. What boundaries? What makes my rock jazz not jazz? Because, by the way, that's my inside joke too. I got a bunch of them in this thing that I'm doing on the industry, but that's another gag in there. My rock jazz is not jazz. Well, what's jazz? I'm trying to provoke that. It's like, well, wait a minute. How is it not jazz? I mean, what makes this jazz then? Because obviously, when I'm playing straight ahead jazz, I can't swing my way into a record deal. I guess I can't play. Is what makes jazz jazz. So where's the conformity? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
So it was that understanding that since there is no real boundary anymore on what jazz is, what's left? Who are you friends with? That's all that's left. So can I go rock out now? And while you guys figure out whatever the hell it is that you call this stuff anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and, sell this here. And, I'll wait till you guys figure it out, because I don't know what it is. Do you?